Hi, I'm Destino Covers the Beatles. Welcome back to my channel. Today we are going to be talking about the other Beatles albums, the compilation albums and the live albums, just focusing on what is considered canon and core. When they released everything on CD in '87, they kind of started really putting into place, these are what we want as our official albums, this is it. And then in 2009 again, it seemed like, well, and from '87 on, up to 2009, they did release some new stuff in there. Obviously released in '93, I believe they released the Beatles 1962 to 1966 and 1967 and 1970, the Red and the Blue albums. And they did re-release those. And of course, there's been some other releases since then too. Some more live albums. These have been widely accepted since 1987 and 2009 again on up. I will be doing something that I don't think a lot of people I've seen do, and actually rank these albums. So here we go on that ranking. Now I am going to be including the live albums with the compilations. There's only, what, 3 live albums? I am also going to include 2 that have only been released digitally in hopes that someday there will be a physical release. I doubt it, but we can always hope. And possibly a what if series episode might be talked about on that. Anyways, I will get going into the list here. Here we go with the compilations and live albums. This ended up being about 15 albums with those 2 digital release ones, and I'll be holding up a nice little blank copy there. We'll put it up in the corner here, cover up the CDs, and you can see a lot are missing there from the rack right now. So the rack's looking a little pitiful as I got them down to hold up here. We'll start out with number 15. It happens to be one of the few live albums, and it would be the Beatles Live at the Hollywood Bowl. This album came out in 2016. Of course, originally released in the 70s as Live at the Hollywood Bowl, or the Beatles at the Hollywood Bowl, not Live at the Hollywood Bowl, just at the Hollywood Bowl. You know, it's a good album. I do like it. I prefer not to listen to thousands of girls shrieking over them playing, but what they were able to lift up out of that when Giles Martin did go through and re-edit this, it was pretty amazing what he was able to lift up out of it. I was expecting, when I first heard this was being released, I was expecting it not to be that great, or at least not listenable, and it is listenable. I just haven't revisited it much, and I'd rather listen to a lot of other albums over that one. And coming in at number 14, one of those blank ones will hold up that it's just ones and zeros as of right now. At number 14, it's the Beatles Bootleg Recordings 1963, which was released in 2013. Released only on iTunes. I believe there is a UK promo, which is pretty hard to find, that was released on physical media, just on LP, I believe. Hopefully one day there will actually be a physical release, but right now it does rank pretty low on my listing just because there isn't that physical release to, you know, to hold and, you know, read the book and all that. Music on it's quite good. It's kind of like an anthology 1+ with outtakes and that from the studio. The rest of it, the majority of it, is really, I kind of joke, as Live at the BBC Volume 3. Those I really enjoy. I really love the Live at the BBC albums, as you're going to see as this ranking goes on. As of for now, that will be at number 14. And coming in at number 13, it's going to be Let It Be Naked. This was released in 2003. At one point, I did consider this pretty high on my, I even said it was my favorite Beatles album to somebody in a bar one time as they inquired about my Beatles shirt I was wearing. I really loved it. I said in my main album, the core album ranking, that I did love Let It Be at one point a lot. I would have probably put it at number 1 at one point in my life. I would probably put it as number 1 at a future point in my life even. When I got Let It Be Naked, I really, really liked it. I liked the addition of Don't Let Me Down on there. I like the stripped down, despecterized version of it, but I do like the Spectre treatment on the main album too. I've learned to appreciate both over time, especially with the recent Get Back release and the 50th anniversary release. I have really gained a new appreciation for it, but I still do like the stripped down version. Just didn't rank very high on my current list. And coming in at number 12 will be another album that is kind of an expanded version or an alternate version of one of the core albums, and that will be the Yellow Submarine song track. And this was released in 1999 to accompany the DVD release of the film. I think if I put this in the main core albums, it would probably help Yellow Submarine out some, but still the majority of it is stuff that's been on other albums. Still only those 4 that were not. I remember when I first got this album, I listened to it over and over and over again. I remember driving around North Dakota just listening to this album and really enjoying it. The remix, hearing the little different things in the different songs, especially Yellow Submarine, really brings out a lot of different sound effects and that. It really was fun getting to hear kind of a different take on it, and our first time really getting a different take on Beatles material. So that was really cool, and I think that's why I did listen to it so much then. It's unfortunate that the original Yellow Submarine album wasn't released, something similar to this. I do understand why they didn't want to put any new material towards it. I know they needed a break at that point, and let's get them what they can do to put out the film. We already got these great songs to make a great song track for that film. There we go for our number 12. And coming in at number 11 will be another one of those that I got nothing to hold up. It'll be the Tomorrow Never Knows compilation that came out on iTunes in 2012. This album I've listened to a few times. Like I said, again, I don't got that physical copy of it to hold. I have a picture of it up here. Can't look through a book. Can't stare at some great album art. Even the album art they put for the thumbnail on iTunes is pretty generic and just pretty sad. I mean, even if they would have gave it a really cool, album art to go as the thumbnail, that would have been at least a little better. Maybe someday they'll release a physical version of it. Something we'll talk about in our What If series, possibly. The song list is pretty good. I like too, they picked some kind of off-the-wall stuff that you wouldn't think would make most compilations, like Anna Bird Can Sing. They put the Anthology 3 version of The End on there. Tomorrow Never Knows itself, I don't think would probably get on too many compilations. And the fact that was obviously the title of the compilation and that the song was on there, pretty cool. If I had a physical thing to hold, it might rank a little higher. As it sits right now, that is my number 11. And luckily from here on out, we will have something physical to hold and show and talk about, and help me love it a little more. Coming in at number 10 will be On Air, Live at the BBC Volume 2. This came out in 2013. Somehow I kind of snoozed on this release. I remember I didn't pick this up right away, but once I discovered it, I picked it up. I listened to it quite a bit. I said I love the Live at the BBC albums. One thing with Volume 2 is it doesn't quite have that same energy, that same punch that the original one had. That's why it does rank as low as it does. I think if I put them together as like one package, which I did try this list like that at one point because a lot of this is a version 1, a version 2, obviously would get a lot higher. You'll see where the original Live at the BBC will end up here, and it's not low. That is my number 10, On Air Live at the BBC Volume 2. And do I do the number 9 joke again? No, I won't. Yeah, coming in at number 9, we've got the Beatles, 1962 to 1966, or also referred to as the Red Album. Originally came out in 1973. Yeah, this album, I never had picked those up initially when I was buying my initial Beatles albums. Like I said, I would go buy an album, once every couple of weeks, once every month, something like that. At least pick up one new album, and it just never got in the cards. I'd put the heavy hit on getting Live at the BBC. I got the anthologies, also the White Album. I just couldn't shell out to get, the big double disc set of those. And plus, when you looked at the track list, I mean, I swear they could put this on one disc. Obviously, with the LP, you had to put it onto 2. Well, once CD came out, I believe they could have fit these on 1 and brought the cost down a little. And I never maybe got into this as much, even though it does got, as you know, my number 1 from my core album list was Rubber Soul. And I swear half of Rubber Soul is on this album. Just in the context of everything else, though, doesn't sit quite as well. And with the rest of the list here, there's other albums I'd listen to over that one. But anyways, there's my number 9, the Red Album. And moving on to number 8, it happens to be number 1. The Beatles won the 2000 release. The 27 number 1 hits, I mean, how can you go wrong with that? That's why it's kind of mid-pack here. Great album, just there's some others that are even better. And speaking of even better, we'll move on to the number 7. This will be, as this has been packaged in so many different ways, it's still the same thing overall. I'm going to combine it as in 2009 when they put it out as just the Past Masters instead of broke down as Past Masters Volume 1 and Past Masters Volume 2. I'm also going to include in the Mono Masters with this. It's just the 4 songs from Yellow Submarine done in mono on this, and taking out a few songs off of here, like Let It Be and Ballad of Johnny Yoko, Old Brown Shoe. Yeah, this is where it sits. Now, I tried doing this with these split initially because the Past Masters Volume 2 does hold a strong place in my heart. That was the first CD I bought, aside from what my parents had already had. When I first started really delving into the Beatles, I obviously gravitated towards their LP collection, which included the early Beatles, Hey Jude, Abbey Road. They did have, on cassette, they had Abbey Road and the Blue Album. That was kind of my initial real introduction to the Beatles. My first of my own getting a CD to really listen to, as that was kind of the format I was moving into. That was the first one I really bought. Looking at the track listing and that on its own, I still think compared to the other albums on this list, might not sit as high as I think, but in my heart, it's got a really strong connection. And I think Past Masters overall does. What a great concept. I think a lot of artists need to kind of follow the Beatles on this, because I think they got a lot of little songs here and there that are floating out there that never got released. So yeah, in 1988, when they did release these, putting out 2 separate albums that had the 1962 up to about 1965 on, the singles and B-sides and non-album tracks, and then 1966 on up to 1970 with the same theory. And then you got everything all together when you put it in with your main core. Pretty cool concept. Moving on to number 6 from 2006. The Love soundtrack. Obviously the remix for the Beatles Cirque du Soleil show Love. I already talked about my seeing the show in person, my amazing ticket that I got, my amazing fun time I had with my buddy going to see it in one of my first videos. Really enjoyed the remix. I always have had a fun time with it. I revisit that album often. I know it's controversial in a way. Some people think it's absolute sacrilege that they did this to the music. I totally disagree. I think you need something like this, a little fun to have, something a little different. I wouldn't do it to every album, especially to the degree that this was done. But, picking out a few songs and having a little fun with it, especially if you do go see the show in Vegas and see what the full experience of it is, seeing what the music is supposed to be supporting there. But anyways, that'll be number 6. And coming in at number 5 will be the 1996 release, Anthology Volume 2. Why did I come in listening to the Beatles at the right time? It was right in the mid-90s. Yeah, to have the Anthology come out right around that time too. So not only am I, starting to listen to the music, but I'm also hearing their story and how well done the Anthology was. And at that point too, it had only been, I had just seen what was on a Beatles C. I hadn't seen the full thing yet. I never got the VHS collection. Years later, I finally did get the DVD collection. Yeah, 2 was definitely good. It didn't have the punch of number 1 with having the new single. Yes, it still had a new single, but Free as a Bird, I think, had a little more weight behind it. I don't know, Volume 1 just had a little more going to it, even though the Strawberry Fields section that they did in here was just fantastic. And to hear it transitioning from almost just a bare, basic demo, moving on up, and how you could hear where that chord change was and all that different shift and the speed change and all that. Anyways, that will be number 5. And coming in at number 4, we've got the other one I was just talking about, Anthology 1. So great. I've already covered everything with 2 on the Anthology, and this, getting to hear, the different speeches and them talking about the music and talking about the success and hearing those live tracks that they were doing initially, getting to hear the deck of demos, getting to hear their initial stuff they got to do with My Bonnie and Tony Sheridan. Really a cool album. I've always enjoyed listening to 1 a lot. It's coming in at number 3. It's going to be the Beatles 1967 to 1970. The Blue Album. As I already mentioned when I talked about the Red Album, my parents did have the cassette copy of this, so it was one of the first Beatles albums I really got to delve into. That's why I think this one might be ranking a little higher. Plus, what a fantastic song list. I do tend to be a little more that mid section, 65, 66. As you can see, if you watch my core album rankings, with Revolver at number 2 and Rubber Soul at number 1. But when you put that last few years of their career together all as one, and just pick out the best of the best and put it on there, and yeah, that's where you get the Blue Album, and that's where its brilliance lies. So when I first discovered this album, I really enjoyed that track listing, and really helped solidify me as a Beatles fan, and that is why it ranks as my number 3. So getting down to the last 2, and number 2 is going to be Anthology Volume 3. It came out in 1996. Obviously finishing up what they started with 1 and 2. Just getting into that last little period there. I really enjoyed the White Album stuff, the Abbey Road that was on here, Let It Be. Really enjoyed that, and that's why this one ranks just a little bit higher, especially the Helter Skelter version that's on here. I know that was also on the White Album's 50th anniversary set, but I love that Helter Skelter on here. And the Easter demos that got put on there. That was the first we ever got an official release of a few of the Easter demos. I remember those always stood out to me. And for number one, I'm sure you figured it out by now, and I've kind of talked about it quite often on this because there has been kind of two other variants of it. That would be Live at the BBC. I fell in love with this album when I first listened to it, and I'm going to hold up the original version too, because they changed it up so much when they reissued it in 2013. Yeah, I remember getting this in 1994. Seems like most of my albums I bought at Target. Why I remember this, I don't know, but Live at the BBC, I specifically remember going to one of the record shops in the mall and picking that one up. And I remember it was when it was fairly new. I just loved listening to it. I loved delving into it, getting to hear their personality when they would talk to the DJ and that, not just the music, and just the energy of the music though. It was just great. Them playing live and really jamming, showing how great of a band that they are. And don't give me this bull crap that they're just a boy band. They are not. They are a true rock and roll band, and this album proves it. Yeah, I just really fell in love with what they were doing there, and so many new songs, songs that weren't on any other album. When this first was released, I don't know the total off the top of my head, but I know a good majority of it. This was the first time that these songs were released on an official capacity. You know, a lot of them covers, obviously, but they also did a lot of their own Lennon McCartney originals that had been given to other artists that were done on this. So your first time getting to hear the Beatles doing that song, and that was pretty cool too. Always look forward to getting back and visiting it. Of course, I always listen to it with on-air Live at the BBC Volume 2 right after, and nowadays with the bootleg recording ones too, getting the BBC sessions off of that. I really wish they would release a Volume 3 though, an official one. Take those ones off of the bootleg recordings and add on the handful of others that aren't on there. I don't think there's many more. Yeah, it would be fun that they would get the rest, especially now with the new technology they're getting. Peter Jackson help them clean it up. I think they could do it. I'd like to see it. Maybe another What If. But anyways, I'm Beatle Dustino, and I'll be signing off on this list, and we'll be seeing you next time. Please remember to like and leave a comment on the video, and definitely subscribe too. Right now we got those ones of subscribers, and let's make it 10s. We'll be seeing you.